Other participants didn't report such mood improvement. Another study conducted in 2014 showed that music can help reduce negative mood and boost self-esteem as indicated below. Specifically, the most significant results of the music interventions on the psychological side can be identified in the aspects more closely related to mood, especially in the reduction of the depressive and anxieties component, and in the improvement of the emotional expression, communication, and interpersonal skills, self-esteem, and quality of life. Valerie N. Stratton, Ph.D., and Annette H. Zalanowski of Penn State University also studied the effect of music on mood. They asked their students to keep music diaries for 2 weeks. Stratton concluded that not only did our sample of students report more positive emotions after listening to music, but their already positive emotions were intensified by listening to music. Interestingly, the music genre and the context in which students listened to the music didn't affect the result. Students' mood improved whether they listened to rock or classical music, or whether they were at home, driving, or socializing. Using music to condition your mind. You can go one step further and use the power of music to condition your mind by creating playlists tailored to your emotional needs. Building playlists is time-consuming but well worth the effort. The world-class endurance athlete and coach, Christopher Berglund, uses music to help him stay motivated and perform at his best. This is what he wrote in an article published in Psychology Today. As an athlete, I developed an ideal mindset for peak performance and used an arsenal of time-tested songs to fortify this alter ego and invincible state of mind. During my training and races, it became obvious that even in really horrible weather conditions or when I was physically suffering, that I could use music and my imagination to create a parallel universe that had little to do with reality. I used music to stay optimistic and see the glass as perpetually half full while doing ultra-endurance races. You can use music as a tool when you work out or in your daily life the same way. Christopher also enjoys listening to specific songs before a big interview or when he does public speaking. Personally, I like to listen to songs that make me feel grateful. What about you? How can you use music to improve your mood? Exercise. Experiment with different types of music. Experiment with different types of music and see how you can use them to boost your mood. For instance, you could use music to help you meditate, work out, or do your homework. As you do so, keep the following points in mind. Everybody is different. Don't listen to a song because it's popular. Listen to it because it makes you feel the way you want to feel. We all have different musical tastes. The only thing that matters is how you feel when you listen to music. Keep experimenting. Listen to different types of music and see how they make you feel. Are you inspired, motivated, happy, relaxed? Start creating playlists for specific moods you want to experience. Part 3. How to change your emotions. The mind always seeks to deny the now and to escape from it. In other words, the more you are identified with your mind, the more you suffer. Or you may put it like this: the more you are able to honor and accept the now, the more you are free of pain, of suffering, and free of the egoic mind. Written by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. In this section, we'll explore how you can deal with negative emotions and condition your mind to experience more positive ones. First, we'll discuss how emotions are formed. Then, we'll discuss the benefit of positive thinking and how to use it to condition your mind. After that, we'll see why positive thinking isn't enough and what else you can do to deal with negative emotions. More specifically, you'll learn how to let go of your emotions, how to change your story and create a more empowering one, how to condition your mind, how to use your behaviors to change your emotions, and how to modify your environment to reduce negative emotions. Finally, I'll share with you a list of short-term and long-term strategies you can use to better deal with negative emotions. Let's get started. Section 11. How our emotions are formed. When a thought emerges on the canvas of your mind, if you don't drop it, its pursuit will either take the form of a desire or an emotion, positive or negative. Written by Swami, A Million Thoughts. Few people know how emotions are formed. While we experience them all day long, we seldom, if ever, take time to understand why we are feeling certain emotions and how they came into existence. First, let's differentiate two types of negative emotions. The first type are the negative emotions you experience spontaneously. These are the emotions that keep you alive, such as the fear our ancestors felt when they encountered a saber-toothed tiger. The second type of negative emotions are the ones you create in your mind by identifying with your thoughts. These emotions aren't necessarily triggered by external events, although they may be. These emotions tend to last longer than the first type. Here is how they work. A random thought arises. You identify with that thought. This identification creates an emotional reaction. As you keep identifying with that thought, the related emotion grows stronger until it becomes a core emotion. Let's look at some examples. You have money problems, and each time your mind comes up with money-related thoughts, you identify with them. As a result, your worry about money intensifies. You had an argument with your friend and fell out with him. You can't stop replaying the scene in your mind. As a result, months have passed and you still haven't called to make up with your friend. You made a mistake at work and are ashamed of yourself. You keep revisiting the same thought over and over. As a result, your feelings of inadequacy grow stronger. Your tendency to identify with negative thoughts repeatedly is what allows them to grow stronger. The more you focus on your financial challenges, the easier it will be for related thoughts to arise in the future. The more you replay the argument with your friend in your head, the stronger the feelings of resentment will grow. Similarly, as you keep thinking of the mistake you made at work, you invite feelings of shame and intensify the situation. The point is, when you give thoughts room to exist, they spread and become major points of focus. This simple process of identification allows seemingly inoffensive thoughts to take control of your mind. This identification with your thoughts, and more importantly, how you choose to interpret them, creates suffering in your life. Now let's see in more detail how your emotions are formed. This will help you better deal with negative emotions while allowing positive emotions to grow. Here is a formula to explain how emotions form. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition, or strong emotion. Interpretation is when you interpret an event or a thought based on your personal story. Identification is when you identify with a specific thought as it arises. Repetition is having the same thoughts over and over. Strong emotion is when you experience an emotion so many times it has become part of your identity. You then experience that emotion whenever a related thought or event triggers it. Altogether, interpretation, identification, and repetition give room for emotions to grow. Conversely, whenever you remove one of these elements from the equation, these emotions start losing their power over you. To sum up, for an emotion to grow in intensity and duration, you must first interpret an event or a thought. Then, you must identify with that thought as it arises. Finally, you must repeat the same thoughts again and again and identify with it. Now, let's discuss in more depth each component of the formula. 1. Interpretation. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition, or strong emotion. Negative emotions always result from your interpretation of events. That's why two different people might react to the same event in different ways. One might be devastated, while the other might be unaffected. For instance, for a farmer, rain could be a blessing, but for someone going on a picnic, it would be seen as a curse. That's because of the meaning they give to the event. In short, for negative emotions to arise, you must add your interpretation to a specific event. The event in itself cannot trigger negative emotions without your consent. So why do you keep experiencing negative emotions? I believe it's because reality fails to meet your expectations. You want reality to be one way, but it turns out to be another. You go on a picnic and want the weather to be good, but it rains. You want a promotion at work, but you don't get it. You want to make money with your side business, but it's not working. Your interpretation of reality creates suffering in your life. Reality in itself can never be upsetting. This is worth repeating. We'll discuss in depth how you can change your interpretation in the next section entitled Changing Your Story. 2. Identification. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition or strong emotion. Now let's focus on the second part of the formula, identification. For an emotion to survive long-term, there must be a process of identification. Emotions cannot persist unless you give them your attention. The more you focus on your emotions and identify with them, the more powerful they become. People often feel the urge to identify with their emotions and find themselves unable to disengage from them. They fail to realize one of the most important truths in this world. You are not your emotions. Your emotions will come and they will go. So when you catch yourself saying, "I'm sad," remember you are incorrect. Nobody has ever been sad, because your emotions are not who you are. They can appear to be you, but they will soon disappear, like clouds in the sky. Think of yourself as the sun, and the sun is always there, whether or not you perceive it, whether or not it's hidden by the cloud. You are not your emotions. You are not sad. You merely experience feelings that you may call sadness at a given point in time. This is an important point. I hope you can see the difference. Another way to see your emotions is as the clothes you wear. What emotional clothes are you wearing right now? Are they clothes of excitement, depression, sadness? Bear in mind, tomorrow or a week from now, you will likely be wearing different clothes. How long you wear your clothes, your emotions, depends on how much you love them, i.e., how much you're attached to your emotions. An emotion in itself is powerless. What gives it power is your conscious or unconscious identification with it. That's why an emotion given no attention will eventually fade away. Try the following exercise. Whenever you're angry, get busy with any activity requiring your full attention. You'll see your anger quickly dissipate. Conversely, keep dwelling on the feelings of anger, and you'll see it grow until it becomes one of your major emotional states. 3. Repetition. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition or strong emotion. We've seen that the way you interpret an event or a thought determines how you feel. We also know that as you identify with your thoughts or feelings, they become emotions. Now, if you keep repeating that process, you'll condition your mind to experience these specific emotions, positive or negative. For instance, if you focus your attention on what you believe your friend did to you, feelings of resentment will grow. As a result, you could hold a grudge for months. People often do this. They waste time holding onto negative emotions that serve no purpose just because they can't let go of them. Conversely, if you disengage from your thoughts of resentment and simply observe them, over time they will lose power and the associated resentment will fade away. In fact, if you had let go of the thought of resentment immediately after it arose, your feelings of resentment would have dissipated almost instantly. We'll see how you can let go of your emotion in the section, Letting Go of Your Emotions. Section 12, Changing Your Interpretation. The sight of a slaughterhouse may trigger a negative emotion in you, whereas it may be positive for the business owner and natural for the machine operator. It all depends on how you are conditioned. Written by Swami, A Million Thoughts. In itself, an event or a thought has no power to alter your emotional state. What generates emotions is the way you choose to interpret the event or thought. This is why two people can react differently to the same situation. One will see a problem and blame external circumstances, while the other will see an opportunity to be embraced. One will get stuck, the other will grow. The way you interpret events is closely linked to general assumptions you hold about life. As such, it is essential we first delve into the underlying assumptions that lead to these interpretations. Exploring your assumptions. To enter a given emotional state, you made certain assumptions regarding how things should be. These assumptions constitute your subjective reality. Because you're convinced they are true, you don't question them. Below are some examples of assumptions you may have. Problems should be avoided. This is a problem. I should be healthy. I'll live at least until I'm 70. I must get married. Complaining is normal. There is nothing wrong with dwelling on the past. I need to worry about the future and/or I can't be happy unless or until insert your answers here. Now let's look at each one of these assumptions. Problems should be avoided. Many people want to get rid of their problems. But what if you can't, and what if you don't need to? For sure, some people have better problems than others, but everybody has problems. What if the assumption that you shouldn't have any problems is wrong? What if you need to learn how to dance in the rain and make the most of your problems? What if problems are just challenges to be overcome and part of life? This is a problem. What if this thing you label as a problem is actually not a problem? What if it doesn't matter as much as you think? What if it's an opportunity in disguise? And how could you make it so? I should be healthy. We tend to take our health for granted, but we cannot guarantee we won't get sick tomorrow. What if your health is a blessing and not necessarily the default position? Wouldn't that make you think of your health in a different way? I'll live at least until I'm 70. You probably assume you'll live a long life, but what if that's not the case? Isn't living a long life a blessing rather than something you should take for granted? Unfortunately, some people die young, but that's the nature of reality. People say, he died too young, but is that correct? Isn't it more accurate to say that he just died? Neither too young nor too old. I must get married. Maybe, maybe not. That's just your interpretation. Shoulds are generally things society or your parents expect you to do, but it doesn't mean it has to be that way. These are often cultural norms or conditioned behaviors. Complaining is normal. Most complaining is a play of the ego and is not constructive. It doesn't help you and doesn't change anything. The only thing it does is strengthen your ego and offend people. Try to spend an entire week without complaining and see what happens. There is nothing wrong with dwelling on the past. You probably spend too much time dwelling on the past. Everybody does. But do you realize the past exists only in your mind? And do you realize you can't change it no matter what you do? Learning from your past is useful. Dwelling on it isn't. I need to worry about the future. Worrying about the future is unavoidable to a certain extent, but it doesn't help. Instead, you should do the best you can in the present to avoid future problems. I can't be happy unless insert your answer. You don't need to have the perfect life to be happy. Happiness is a choice you need to make every day. You must practice it since, as we've seen before, external factors won't significantly affect your happiness. These are just some examples of assumptions you may hold. My intention here is to show you that your interpretations and the emotions generated from them are largely the result of the assumptions you hold about the world. Thus, to experience more positive emotions, it is important you spend time revising your assumptions, analyzing your interpretations. As we've already seen, you interpret events based on your assumptions. Now, below are some questions to help you understand what I mean by interpretations. Do you think everything happens for a reason and embrace it, or do you play the victim? Do you believe temporary setbacks are just milestones that will lead you to succeed, or do you give up when you encounter your first major setback? Do you try to change things that cannot be changed, or do you accept them? Do you believe you're here for a reason, or do you wander through life without any clear purpose? Do you believe problems are bad and should be avoided, or do you believe they are a necessary part of life? Remember, what differentiates people who live a happy life from people who are miserable is often how they choose to interpret their lives. All right, bookish buddies, that wraps up today's chapter in our literary journey. If you found our time together as enchanting as I did, consider hitting that subscribe button. Stay in the loop for all things book-related. I'm eager to hear from you, so drop your book suggestions in the comments below. Get ready for the upcoming segment on my channel. Wishing each of you fantastic days filled with the magic of reading. Until our next chapter, take care and farewell.